Recently, Donald Trump was re-elected President of the United States. He became the first president since Grover Cleveland and the second ever to be elected in non-consecutive terms. The hope that Americans have is that Donald Trump can stabilize the economy and provide Americans with a new life. But can he really? Barack Obama and Joe Biden have argued for a long time that Donald Trump was handed a great economy and that he did nothing to stabilize it himself.
And the reason some people think, wow, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good, because it was my economy.
Trump uses economic policies stemming from the 1980s and Ronald Reagan. Reagan's economic strategies are often labeled Reaganomics and feature a low taxation strategy with the idea of strengthening American businesses and consumer purchasing power in mind. The Democrats claim that this strategy has never been successfully pulled off.
You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle-class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible. It's been done before. It's precisely what we're proposing.
It has never been done before.
It's been done a couple of times, actually.
It has never been
Jack
done
Kennedy
before.
lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan.
But could it really be pulled off? In this video, we put Reaganomics to the test and show once and for all whether Donald Trump's economic plan could be successful. Reaganomics comes from an economic philosophy known as laissez-faire, which is French for let it happen. The idea of laissez-faire economics is that the government should keep itself as far away from the economy as it possibly can. Laissez-faire was abandoned around the time of the Great Depression when the idea of Keynesian economics came along. This philosophy came from British economist John Maynard Keynes. Keynes believed that higher government spending could produce the missing production in the economy. From that point on, the government had a significant interest in being involved in economics. John F. Kennedy was able to use a mixture of laissez-faire economics and government intervention to create his own form of economic strategy, but other than that, presidents didn't really try to intervene with the idea of economic interventionism. Then, the late 1970s hit, and Jimmy Carter's presidency was a nightmare. His economy created hardship for people across the nation.
Mortgage rates pushed 20%. Unemployment kept on rising.
Enter Ronald Reagan, the former American actor and governor of California. Reagan took the Oval Office in 1980 and started integrating laissez-faire economics into the new system again, only in a more aggressive form than Kennedy. Reagan also lowered government spending. The reduction of government influence on the economy allowed businesses to have more flexibility and increase their amounts of production. The idea was that American wages would increase, and prices would decrease, because of the basic ideas of supply and demand. 30 years after Reagan, we saw Donald Trump use the same economic strategies that Reagan did, and he's looking at using them again in the next 4 years. But the question of the day is, does this system really work? To find out, we have to look at 3 different economic areas: GDP, income, and purchasing power. Let's start with the easiest one, GDP. For those who don't know, GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. Basically, it's the amount of stuff that the bureaucrats and billionaires of the world can conjure up for us. If Reaganomics is as effective as it seems, it should generate higher levels of GDP, and it does. According to macro trends, President Reagan was handed an economy coming off a year of negative production in 1980. By the year of his re-election bid in 1984, he had achieved over 7% growth. That's the highest turnaround we had seen in a long time, and we haven't seen it since. Although, that's not always the full story. You see, GDP is composed of 4 different categories: American consumption, business spending, government spending, and net exports. Of those 4 categories, 2 of them stick out: business spending and government spending. Higher business spending and lower government spending would indicate the more hands-off approach of Reaganomics, while lower business spending and higher government spending would indicate a more Keynesian economic approach. However, according to the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, gross national product grew by 26% under Reagan, meaning that production by Americans worldwide was increasing. This is a sign of higher amounts of investment. Furthermore, Reagan dropped government spending from 10% in 1982 to 1% in 1987. This means that Reagan's major successes in growing GDP was entirely due to his hands-off approach. But that doesn't mean that we'll be able to afford more stuff even if we produce it at a higher rate. Reaganomics only works as if wages and purchasing power increase, so let's look at that. According to data from the SSA, the average annual wage across the nation in 1980, just before Reagan took office, was just over $12,500. The average wage in 1988, before Reagan left office, was just over $19,300. That's an increase of about $6,800. In comparison, right before Barack Obama took office in 2008, the average wage was a little over $41,300. By 2016, right before Obama left office, the average wage was a little over $48,600. That's an increase of $7,300. Now, before you go off and say that this invalidates the idea of Reaganomics, let's remember that the amount of growth is based on percentages, not totals. Under Barack Obama, we had a wage increase of 17.7%. While that seems like a steady number, under Reagan, we saw 54.4% growth. Wages were increasing for Americans by over half their salary, not almost a fifth. Reaganomics put money back into people's pockets and provided families with the money they needed to buy food and pay their bills, or so we think. The problem is, the additional wealth only means anything if people can afford goods and services. That's why, in order to know if Reaganomics works once and for all, we have to examine the ability to purchase. This is examined in something called purchasing power. Purchasing power is how much you can buy with $1 at a particular period. The 1980s saw the dollar be worth a lot more to a person than it is today. You could get more with $1 than you can in 2024. That meant that $1 could buy Americans nearly triple what it could at the beginning of Reagan's term, and at some points in time, $1 could buy them 12 times the amount of stuff. In comparison, the Obama administration started off in 2008 with inflation at 0.1%. By 2016, inflation was at 2.1%. This means that $1 could get Americans 21 times less the amount of stuff you could get with it 8 years before. So, Reaganomics passes all three tests of viability. It puts wealth into the pockets of ordinary people like us. It gives Americans the opportunity to get more for their money. It allows the economy to do its thing and let Americans live in peace. It's the system that gives us what we want, more. Hey! Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe for more amazing content. Don't forget to ring the bell to switch on notifications. Also, check me out on social media and visit theissuepoc.com for more content and updates. I'll see you all very soon. Have a great day, America.